Your first recollections of meeting Frank and your impressions?
Oh, well, when I first met him, I thought he was turning upside down my whole philosophy about doing therapy, because he was breaking every single rule that to that moment I had learned was absolutely graved in stone. You were not supposed to do things what he did. And I had 15 years of therapy and 5 years of psychological studies, so
wow.
20 years of experience in the year 85. And I was shocked in a way, and on the other hand, it was a totally relief, because I thought, oh wow, if this is therapy, I want to learn it. I absolutely want to know what's going on here. I didn't understand anything, because it was funny and we were laughing a lot, but he was insulting people all the time. And then they said in the end, I never felt so understood before. so I talked to Frank after the first day of this workshop. I said, I don't understand it. I like it a lot, but you insult people, but there must be something more. And he said, yes, there is something more. Well, first I thought this guy is so untherapeutic, and I loved it, because therapists normally they are like a sphinx. They don't move, they don't in that time, and they act like a typical therapist, which I think is, first, it's exhausting, plus it's not real. And Frank was just a normal kind of guy. He was talking to people as if we talk now. And this was one thing. The second thing was he used humor. And at that time, now it's more established to use humor. You're allowed to do that. But at that time, humor was a no-go in therapy.
Yeah.
I found the quote. They said, if a client laughs in therapy, it's a neurotic reaction, and it has immediately to be stopped. That's what I found in the literature. And so we laughed for 3 days, all the time. It was so funny. And then I thought, it's great that you don't laugh about somebody, you laugh with him.
Yeah.
And people didn't feel hurt or insulted, they felt understood. And I thought, I've got to find out what that is. From the very beginning, he was very often living in our house, which was very nice to get to know him better. He came with his wife, June, and sometimes they were in our house for weeks. So he had this, it was kind of, he said, my home away from home. He was living in our house, went to a workshop somewhere in Europe, came back to our house. So I really got to know him, and we discussed a lot about his work, because I was so fascinated. I thought, I want to learn this. I want to know what's about. For me, the attractive thing was being a normal human being doing therapy, and using humor, and the speed in which a client changes. This is so fascinating, and I still am fascinated about this when I do this life work in a workshop, and you have 15 minutes to work provocatively. And sometimes you get a feedback later that people say, this really changed my life. 15 minutes, I mean, This is really short-time therapy. The surprise that the client has immediately. You talk about something and he is so surprised, he or she thinks, what is this? So, but it's still in the system of the client. So Keith Johnston, the improv guru, he says, stay inside the circle. And I think this is one of the things you do in provocative therapy. You stay inside the circle of the thinking of the client, but you bring aspects which he never thought before, but which he or she might have thought. If it's a fear or something the client had before, you overdo it so much that the client thinks, no, wait a minute. So he starts to differentiate.
Yeah.
You don't tell him you have to see it in a different way. You have to see such aspect and such aspect. No, you go with a very generalized stereotype and say this is normal and this has to be, and you have no chance to get out of this. So you're too old anyhow. You won't be a success. so forget it. And then the client starts to reassure himself and to differentiate.
Yeah.
If you say all men are pigs to a woman, she will say, well, I know one who is not a pig.
Mm.
So she already has two categories. This is a thing that I think you should explain in the very beginning in a workshop or in a book or wherever, that provocative does not mean that you hurt another person, that you are mean and that you do something which is a benefit for you but not for the client. You're always with the client. Frank always talked about this being the devil's advocate, but being very much on the side of the angels. So I think this is crucial, because we often experience that people come to our workshops and they say, yes, I am provocative, I have done this before for years, I know how to do it. And then they go out, they didn't get it in a way, especially when they went to Frank's workshops then, because Frank didn't explain his work in a very left brain way. He explained it with associations and stuff, and I sometimes found out people who just come for one day, look at some modules, some live work of Frank, and then they say, yes, I got it, I know what that is, and then they really punched the clients. So the clients were kind of destroyed in a way.
Yeah.
This is not provocative therapy in my understanding. I think the crucial thing is you are with a client. It's a directive way to treat a client, but only the process. You direct the process, but the content, what you're talking about, the client gives you the material from second to second to second. So it's a here and now thing.
Yeah.
You take whatever the client offers you, and you take it and juggle with it. And then you see, we call it, you shoot in a bush and watch if a bunny comes out.
Yeah.
And if a bunny comes out, you go ahead. Yeah. You are normal.
Yeah.
To build rapport is very easy in a matter of seconds if you really like the client. And I think this is one of the basics which we try to teach, and you cannot fake it.
Yeah.
You have to think the client is worthwhile, the client has all the resources he needs to change, the client is lovable, and I like a lot of things about the client, and then you can laugh with the client about the crazy things he does to himself. But if you don't like a client, if you think this client is hopeless or something, never use provocative therapy, because then I think it gets really destructive. And it's easy to build rapport if you like somebody. And the other one, over 90% of the communication is nonverbal, so the client gets immediately if you think I like this person, or if you think I talk as if I like him, but I don't. I think, oh, it's awful, I wish I have a colleague that I hate enough to transfer this guy to him. So, and this is the basic thing, and you always have to check, do I still think this client is lovable? Do I still think he will make it? If you have any doubt that you think, no, he will never do it, he's too dumb, he's too old, you're not supposed to say that. But so this is from in my experience, is also a real problem for the pros, that they think I'm not authentic when I say things that I do not believe. And if you work provocatively, you are always saying things, most of the time you say things you do not believe at all. You just think maybe the client might believe it. Okay?
Yes.
Then you test. And the other thing is, you don't ask many questions, you just say. And then the client, he is much more emotionally in the process if you just throw him all these sentences, and he has to react. If I tell you're much too old to change and forget it, and you will never do, because it needs a certain intelligence to change and look at you, you want to tell me I'm not too old and I'm not too dumb and so. But if I really think so, I shouldn't say that. So I always say we are very authentic in our feeling towards the client, but we are absolutely incongruent in what we think and what we say. But this has nothing to do with authenticity, because I authentically I authentically love the client, but I talk to him as if I thought he's totally weird. You do a therapy interview with a client, and he doesn't know, should I do this or should I do that? So in my workshops we created an exercise which is similar to what you said. We say, you for 30 seconds you say, do this, and give all the benefits it has when he does. And then you say, no, I thought about it. No, it's not good for you. And then you change for 180 degrees and say, no, I think you better should do this. This is much better. And 30 seconds later, you change again. And you change ping pong, we call it. You change and change. So the client in the end said, he doesn't know anything, but sometimes after 10 minutes, the client says, now I know what to do. Or he does it later. It's a wonderful thing, because you don't give him a solution, but you bring him out of this, I cannot do anything, there is no solution, I'm stuck, and so on. So he has to, it really puzzles the client. But the good thing is, when you work provocatively, you don't have to be perfect. That's very good. For me, the crucial thing is, it has to be somebody who has humor, in a sense that he's also able to laugh about himself. If he or she cannot do this, should never do provocative therapy, because the absurdity of our life, of our thinking, of everything we do. I mean, you can find 10 absurd things every day you do, and it's funny, and you don't have to punish you when you find this out, to laugh about it. It's human. If you think that you talk ex cathedra and you know the truth and you know how the client should react and what he really should do, I think nobody will know anybody else so good to really know what's best for him or her. The client has to find out, and the client knows emotionally if the solution is good for him or her. And if this happens, and I think it happens very quickly when you work provocatively, that the client is emotionally involved, and then he finds out, yes, I'm going to do this. But it's not a thing of irrational brain stuff. It comes from we say, from the stomach. It comes, do you say this too? It comes from the stomach? That means it comes from the emotions. It comes from another place than your rational, digital, clear thing. Yes, this, you have to do that. And the client sometimes says, yes, I should. But if he's only in the brain, forget it. And if you do it provocatively, he very quickly knows emotionally, yes. And if he knows emotionally, yes, I'm going to do that, it's very stable and it will last. You don't have to do 400 hours on a couch to find this out. If the client did this switch, he will go this way. Maybe he comes again to say, yeah, I found a new problem that comes up. But with the problem we talked about, and if the emotional switch has happened, it's a, wie sagen Selbstläufer, I don't know the English word. It's something that runs by himself.